Okay, so once you've raised and supported your vehicle, the first thing you want to do is get rid of or remove this screw right here. And I strongly advise you to be using a impact wrench or impact screwdriver. If you don't have one of these, it's going to be very difficult to remove that with a regular screwdriver. There's a very good possibility you will strip the screw. So I strongly advise you to either buy one of these or borrow one of these from a local part source, and this will make things a lot easier for you. So what you want to do is place your the screwdriver in place, and with a hammer you want to hit it, and as you hit it, it will turn the screw, and as you can see, it makes things a lot easier to remove. Next thing you want to remove after you've removed the screw here is your anti-rattle clip. You want to use a screwdriver and just pry at the bottom of one corner. Just be careful because these things are loaded. So just get one corner out, and once you have that out, the other side will come off easy. After you've removed your anti-rattle clip, you want to remove these dust covers in the back here. There's the bottom one, and this is the top one. And with a number 7, you can insert it inside and remove the screws in here.
And then we'll remove the top one.
Once the threads are totally backed out of the caliper bracket, you can go ahead and use a screwdriver just to push the slider back a bit so that they're completely out of the way. And this will help make removing the caliper itself a little bit easier. And if you see that the caliper is somewhat stuck on there, you can put your screwdriver in between the piston and the brake pad just to force the piston slightly backwards, and that should allow you a lot of space to remove the caliper. Now you want to put the caliper aside. So next thing you want to do is remove these 2 bolts for the caliper bracket. These are 17 millimeters. What you can do first is use a breaker bar just to loosen them up. They're not very tight, so you may not even need a breaker bar.
Get the caliper out of the way here. And then you just want to remove them completely. Be careful with your caliper, make sure it's secure.
And with those 2 bolts out of the way, you can remove the caliper bracket. With the caliper bracket out of the way, you can now just remove the rotor. Okay, so once you have everything out of the way, the rotor out of the way, the caliper bracket out of the way, the next things you want to do is start cleaning. And you can start here by cleaning the hub. Just use a wire brush to clean that off. Another important spot to make sure you clean well is at the contact points with the outside brake pad, one at the top here and the other one at the bottom here. And also your caliper bracket. Make sure that you clean inside the grooves here and here, and the contact points with the brake pad. As you can see, the old contact points and the grooves inside of here. And to clean that, you can use a wire wheel or a file, whatever you need to. Just make sure that it's nice and clean. And also clean the old slider pins. Just make sure there's no buildup, as you can see on these ones. And then I'll show you once everything's cleaned up how to put it back together. So with a file, you just want to make sure that you clean all this corrosion and rust buildup that's here, and in the grooves here, and on the contact points here, because this is where the brake pad sits and it slides back and forth. And if there's any obstruction here, it'll allow the brake pad to move in, but it'd be very difficult for it to move out after you release the brake pedal. So this is very important. You want to make sure that it's very clean here. And after you've done that, you want to add a little bit of anti-seize into the grooves, just to give it that little bit of help that it needs. Just take a file like that, and as you can see, there was quite a bit of buildup here, and this could possibly explain why the rotor was prematurely getting worn in the way it was, as you can see in the video. And once you got it nice and clean, you want to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side, and you should be good to go after that. So once you got your caliper bracket nice and clean like that, I just want to show you just a little bit of how much rust came off of this bracket here. As you can see, this is quite a bit of corrosion that's building up on these calipers, and you definitely want to get that out of the way, otherwise this could cause you a lot of issues down the road, especially putting on brand new parts. So once you got that going, next thing you want to do is what I like to do, and this is just the way I do things, is go ahead and add a little bit of anti-seize just into the grooves there. You don't want to go crazy with this, just a little dab, just so that we don't have corrosion in the future, or at least it will help it not corrode so quickly. And now this caliper is ready for installation. So before you install your rotor or your caliper bracket, you remember at the beginning of the video, this vehicle is equipped with the electronic parking brake, and I showed you how to put this into service mode. You got to take one thing into consideration and be careful about here. This piston, although it looks like the old style pistons where you compress and turn the piston, you don't have to do that with this particular vehicle, because we've already put this caliper into service mode, and the right way of doing this is to just compress it back. It's advised not to turn and push this back, because it could possibly cause damage internally to the piston. So you should just push this back like you would with the front caliper. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You can use a C-clamp if you like, but if you have a caliper compressing tool like this one here, you can just set it up in between the caliper and the outside bracket here, and just slowly push the piston into place until it bottoms out. And once it can't go any further, you can release the tool, and as you can see, we've compressed the piston without turning it. Okay, so now we're ready to install the rotor. You want to add a little bit of anti-seize just around the hub here, and we're using a coated rotor. So these coated rotors, they don't want you to clean them off because of the special coating that it has on there. So we're not going to do that. You remember the screw that holds the rotor in place. Just add a little bit of anti-seize to that so that you don't have any issues in the future. This screw is not absolutely necessary if you damaged yours or had any issues with it. It's just to help you during the service process. That's all it's really there for. And you don't want to go crazy with over torquing that either. Just put it into place, make sure it's nice and snug, and that's how you get the rotor into place. Next, you want to install your caliper bracket with your two 17mm bolts, and just make sure you got it lined up like that and into place. And you want to thread them in by hand at first, just to make sure they're not cross-threaded. And I'll be posting the torque specifications for this, and also the slider pins that go up here onto the caliper. Okay, so after your bracket is in place, next thing you want to do is install your brake pads. You just want to make note of the brake pads. The one with the clip here goes on the inside, and the one without the clip goes on the outside. They are different, as you can see, especially at the bottom here. So just make sure you don't put these in the wrong place. And also the one on the inside has the anti-wear bar that's attached to the brake pad itself. So this is pretty straightforward. You just slide it into place, make sure it's sitting in the groove correctly. Same thing you want to do on the outside. And they sit like that. Next, you want to grab your caliper and carefully slide your caliper into place. Making sure that the outside caliper, the top portion of it slides into the caliper itself so that it's sitting correctly. And if you have an issue with it sliding into place, you can go ahead and clean it a bit more, and then you're ready to install your slider pins. So after you've installed your brake pad correctly onto the brake caliper itself, make sure that the top and the bottom is in place correctly. You want to go ahead and install your slider pins. And with your number 7 Allen, you want to make sure also that you add a little bit of brake lubricant onto the slider pin. And I usually like to start at the top here. Just make sure that it's lined up correctly, and just go ahead and thread it in by hand for now, just to make sure that it's not cross-threaded. Once you got the top one into place, you want to install the bottom one also. And you may need to push the caliper down slightly because of that spring on the back brake pad. Once again, I will be posting the torque specs for these in the video. Don't forget about your dust covers. And also, don't forget about your anti-rattle clip. You can clean this up also if you like. Add a little bit of lubricant just to the tips here. And to install this, it's just in the reverse order of how you removed it. Just put one side into place. And then the other side at the bottom. And at this point, you're pretty much done this side. You want to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. After you've completed both sides, I will show you how to put the electronic parking brake back to normal mode. So if you found this video helpful and informative, please like, share, and subscribe for more great videos like this. Thank you and have a great day.